Hello, I'm Catherine Williams, and if someone had told me a year ago that I'd be signing million-dollar contracts while my own family plotted to steal everything I'd worked for, I would have laughed. But life has a way of teaching you that sometimes the people who should love you most are the ones who will hurt you deepest. This is the story of how I learned to choose my real family over the one that never truly claimed me. The call from my mother came just as I was signing a $10 million contract at my downtown Chicago office. My pen hovered over the signature line as her voice cut through the static. "Catherine, the deed came through. It's in your sister's name now." I finished my signature with deliberate strokes, each letter pressed firmly into the paper. "I see." "What kind of attitude is that?" Mother's voice sharpened like broken glass. "Your sister is still young. She needs to get married, and without a house, his family will never respect her. As her older sister, you should be helping more." I laughed softly into the phone, my voice carrying across the conference room with surprising lightness. "I understand." "Good, and make sure you keep up those monthly payments. We can't have this affecting your sister's credit rating." "Of course," I replied, then promptly hung up and dialed the bank's customer service line. "Hello? I need to cancel my automatic mortgage payments." "Catherine, have you lost your mind?" My father's voice boomed through the phone so loudly I had to hold it away from my ear. I moved to the floor-to-ceiling windows of my corner office, gazing out at the glittering lights of Chicago's evening skyline. For the first time in years, I felt completely calm. "Dad, I haven't lost my mind. That house cost a $500,000 down payment that I saved working nights and weekends through college and 6 years of my career. The $3,500 monthly payments have been coming straight from my salary account. You told me we'd put it in my name temporarily, then transfer it later because paperwork would be simpler that way. After all, we're family, right?" I believed you. I paused, my voice carrying no emotion whatsoever. "Now the house belongs to Jessica. Why should I carry 30 years of debt for her asset?" "You're trying to kill us." Father's voice cracked with what sounded like tears. "Your sister's engagement is already settled. His family chose her precisely because we have this house. If you stop the payments and the bank forecloses, what happens to her marriage? How can we show our faces in the community?" "Show our faces?" I laughed as if I'd heard the most ridiculous joke. "When you took all my savings under the pretense of buying me a wedding house, did you think about my face? When you transferred my wedding house to your precious daughter, did you consider my feelings? She's your own sister. Does being my sister give her the right to take everything I've worked for?" My voice finally turned cold. "I give you $2,000 every month for living expenses. Isn't that enough? Must you bleed me completely dry?" The line went quiet, except for Mother's shrill wailing. "How could I raise such an ungrateful child? So selfish! If your sister's engagement falls through, I'll die just to show you." "Suit yourself." I spoke those 2 words quietly and hung up, then blocked all 3 of their phone numbers. The world became beautifully silent. I poured myself a glass of wine and stood by the window, watching the city's brilliant lights. This luxury apartment in downtown Chicago cost me $5,000 a month in rent. They never knew about it. They assumed I worked myself to exhaustion in that high-rise office building for a modest salary. They had no idea I'd become a partner in one of the city's most prestigious consulting firms years ago. My phone buzzed with a message from my sister, Jessica. "Sis, don't be angry with Mom and Dad. They're just looking out for me. You're so much more capable than I am. I'm sure you can buy an even better place later. Think of this house as a loan from you. When I have money someday, I'll definitely pay you back." She'd added a cute emoji at the end. I stared at those hypocritical words, feeling nauseous. A loan? How convenient. I blocked her number too, Before long, my doorbell rang. Daniel Richardson stood in the hallway holding a box of cupcakes from my favorite bakery, his face lit with that gentle smile I'd fallen in love with. "Guess what I brought you?" Seeing him, the last shadows in my heart lifted. "What are you doing here?" I let him in. "I missed you." He wrapped his arms around me from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder. "How did the negotiations go today? Did you land that big contract?" "I did." I leaned back against his warmth. "That's my brilliant fiancé." He kissed my cheek and set the cupcakes on the table. "We should celebrate. By the way, did you work things out with your parents about our wedding house? They mentioned using that new place you bought?" I was quiet for a moment, then looked up at him seriously. "Daniel, what if I told you that wedding house is gone? Would you still marry me?" Daniel's face froze, his smile disappearing. "What do you mean, gone?" I took a deep breath and told him everything. How my parents had convinced me to drain my savings, how they'd transferred the deed to Jessica without my knowledge, and how I'd stopped the mortgage payments. Daniel's expression shifted from surprise to shock, then to blazing fury. He slammed his fist on the table, making the cupcake box jump. "How could they do that? This isn't favoritism, it's robbery!" His chest rose and fell with rage, his eyes reddening. "Catherine, you did the right thing. Don't give them another penny." Watching him get angry on my behalf, I felt my eyes welling up. "But the house, the bank will foreclose, our wedding house." "If the house is gone, we'll buy another one. We can rent and get married." Daniel gripped my hands, his gaze steady as granite. "Catherine, remember this. I want to marry you, not your house. Even if you had nothing at all, I'd still want you." My tears finally spilled over. Years of grievance and frustration found their release in that moment. I collapsed into his arms, sobbing. Daniel held me close, stroking my back, repeating over and over, "Don't be afraid. I'm here. I'll protect you from now on." Just then, my phone rang insistently, an unknown number. I wiped my tears and answered. Mother's frantic voice burst through the speaker. "Catherine, you've got some nerve blocking us. I'm telling you, if you don't restore those mortgage payments today, I'm going to your office to make a scene. I'll let everyone see what an unfilial daughter you are." "My office?" I laughed coldly, my voice dripping with mockery. "Mom, you don't even know which company I work for. Where exactly would you cause this scene?" The voice on the other end faltered, clearly stumped by my question. They'd always assumed I was just another office worker at some unknown company, struggling for a modest paycheck. They enjoyed the comfortable life I provided, while knowing nothing about me personally. Too lazy even to try. "Don't get cocky. You think I can't find you? I'll ask your colleagues. I'll check every office building. I'll track you down eventually." Mother's voice turned hysterical again. "Please do. I'll be waiting." I couldn't be bothered arguing anymore. "But I should warn you. If your harassment causes me to lose my job, forget the mortgage payments. The $2,000 a month I give you for living expenses will stop too." I hung up and blocked that number as well. Daniel watched me with eyes full of sympathy. "Have they always treated you like this?" I shook my head, then nodded. "Not quite this badly before. I suppose my obedience all these years gave them the wrong impression that no matter what they did, I'd comply unconditionally. It had always been this way since childhood. Whenever there was anything good to eat or enjoy, it always went to my sister, Jessica. My parents' favorite phrase was, "You're the older sister. You should share with your younger sister." I'd been sharing for over 20 years, from candy and new clothes to a house worth nearly $1 million. I thought my sacrifices would bring family harmony, maybe even earn me a fraction of their love. Now I understood. In their eyes, I wasn't their daughter. I was a tool to be exploited endlessly. a stepping stone for their precious daughter's happiness. They won't give up easily, Daniel said, frowning. After you stop payments, the bank will send notices, then legal warnings, then begin foreclosure proceedings. The whole process takes at least 6 months. That's plenty of time for them to harass you. I know, I'll handle whatever comes. I nodded. I've done more than enough. I thought they'd limit themselves to phone calls and messages. I underestimated their shamelessness. The next day, during an important video conference, my assistant knocked frantically on my door. Ms. Williams, there are people downstairs causing a disturbance. They're asking for you specifically. My heart sank with dread. Who are they? A man, a woman, and a young girl. They claim to be your parents and sister. My assistant looked uncomfortable. They're crying and shouting in the lobby, saying you're unfilial and abandoning them. Security can't control them. Every executive in the conference room stared at me. I took a deep breath, apologized to our clients on the video call, and turned off my camera and microphone. Send them up, I said coldly. Ms. Williams, perhaps we shouldn't. Send them up. I'll meet them in the small conference room. My tone brooked no argument. I wanted to see exactly what spectacle they'd create. Minutes later, the conference room door burst open. My parents and Jessica stormed in. The moment Mother saw me, she lunged forward like a madwoman, her hand raised to slap me. You little beast! You actually dared to stop the payments! The bank's collection calls are flooding my phone! I'd anticipated this, dodging aside as she stumbled and nearly fell. Daniel appeared just in time, stepping between us. Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, please discuss this calmly without violence. Who do you think you are? We're disciplining our own daughter. Mind your own business. Father pointed accusingly at Daniel. I'm Catherine's fiancé, Daniel replied evenly. Her affairs are my affairs. Fiancé? Mother looked Daniel up and down with obvious disdain. You? Some nobody thinks he can marry my daughter? Over my dead body. Unless you pay off that mortgage right now. I was amazed by her shameless audacity. Mom, look carefully. This is Daniel Richardson, the only son of Richardson Holdings. Your so-called nobody has a net worth that probably exceeds the value of that house by several hundred times. My parents and Jessica froze, staring at Daniel in disbelief. Richardson Holdings was a household name in Chicago. Jessica's eyes immediately blazed with greed. She rushed to me, grabbing my arm with sudden intimacy as if we'd never had any conflict. Sis, I had no idea your boyfriend was so successful. You should have told us. Look, we're all family. Why let this get so ugly? The house situation was my mistake. I shouldn't have taken it. How about this? Have your fiancé restore the mortgage payments, and after I get married and have some money, I'll give the house back to you, okay? She spoke with apparent sincerity, as if truly repentant. If I didn't know her so well, I might have been moved. I shook off her hand and stared coldly. Give it back? The deed has your name on it. What exactly would you use to return it? Empty promises? Jessica was speechless. Catherine, how dare you speak to your sister that way? Father began his usual bellowing. She's already compromised. What more do you want? Must you drive our entire family to ruin to be satisfied? To ruin? I met his gaze, my words cutting deep. When you forced me to drain my savings, did you consider that you might be ruining me? When you transferred the house to Jessica, did you think about how I'd manage my future marriage? Now you have the audacity to demand I pay for your mistakes? We have that right, because we gave birth to you and raised you, Mother shouted righteously. Haven't the living expenses I've provided all these years repaid that debt? I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. Since my first year working, I've given you $500 a month, then $800, then $2,000, every holiday and birthday. Haven't my gifts been at least $1,000? Jessica's expenses from college until now, tuition, living costs, credit card bills. Haven't I paid everyone? You live in the house I bought, spend the money I earn, then turn around and call me unfilial? My voice wasn't loud, but each word struck like a hammer blow. They were stunned into silence, their faces cycling through shades of green and white. Fine, 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 Father said the word 3 times, trembling with rage. Catherine, you're ruthless. Your wings have grown strong enough that we can't control you anymore. But mark my words, if you don't restore those mortgage payments, we'll come to your office every single day. We'll go to the Richardson family, too. We'll see whether the Richardson reputation matters more than your money. He grabbed my still-dazed mother and Jessica, storming out and slamming the door. Daniel's face was dark as storm clouds. They're threatening us! I know. I rubbed my temples wearily. Don't worry. Daniel took my hand. I'll handle my parents. They're reasonable people. As for your office, I'll arrange for our best legal team to come here. If they dare cause another scene, we'll have them arrested for trespassing. He paused, looking at me with absolute determination. Catherine, we cannot back down this time. One step backward leads to an endless abyss. My parents moved faster than I'd expected. Less than 2 hours after leaving my office, Daniel received a call from his mother. Elizabeth Richardson's voice sounded serious but not accusatory. She simply wanted to meet with me for a conversation. Daniel and I exchanged glances, understanding immediately. This was clearly going to be a challenging encounter. Let's go, I told him. I'll have to face them eventually. Better to meet my future in-laws now, even under these circumstances. Daniel touched my head tenderly. Don't say that. You're the best fiancé I could ask for. Don't worry, my parents are reasonable people. I'll explain everything to them. Despite his reassurance, my heart raced with anxiety. The Richardson family had built an empire and valued their reputation above all else. My parents' scene had essentially ground the Richardson name into the dirt. How would they view me? Would they see me as trouble from a family of troublemakers and try to stop our wedding? With trepidation, I followed Daniel to the Richardson family estate. The Richardson mansion sat in Chicago's most exclusive suburb, a stately Tudor-style home that whispered of understated luxury. William Richardson and Elizabeth Richardson waited in the living room. William sat in the main chair, radiating quiet authority while holding a glass of whiskey. Elizabeth wore an elegant Chanel suit, the picture of refined grace. Seeing us enter, Elizabeth offered a polite but distant smile, gesturing to the sofa across from them. Catherine, please sit. The formal address made my heart sink. Dad, Mom, Daniel broke the tension. I've already explained the situation over the phone. This isn't Catherine's fault. William raised his eyes, fixing me with an penetrating stare. You're saying your parents took a house you paid for in full and are currently making mortgage payments on and simply transferred the deed to your sister's name to serve as her wedding house? His tone was calm but carried immense pressure. I straightened my shoulders and met his gaze confidently. Yes, Mr. Richardson. And then you stopped making the payments? Yes. Do you understand the consequences? William continued. The bank will repossess and auction the property. Your credit rating will be severely damaged, affecting all future loan applications and possibly employment. Did you consider these factors? I did consider them, I answered honestly. But compared to carrying 30 years of debt for property that doesn't belong to me, compared to being endlessly exploited by family members, I believe the cost is worth it. William fell silent, his fingers tapping thoughtfully on the armrest. The living room atmosphere grew oppressively heavy. Elizabeth sighed and spoke up. Catherine, we're not unsympathetic to your grievances. However, your parents came to our company this afternoon, crying and wailing in the lobby, claiming the Richardson family was bullying them and driving them to desperation. Word has spread throughout the company, seriously damaging the Richardson reputation. She paused, her voice taking on a note of difficulty. Daniel is the Richardson family's only heir. His wife cannot come from such a complicated family background. We hope you can resolve your family situation quickly and prevent further impact on Daniel and our family. Though diplomatically phrased, her message was crystal clear. Either I solved the problem of my troublesome birth family, or my engagement to Daniel was over. My heart sank deeper and deeper. Daniel's face changed dramatically. He stood up excitedly. "Mom! How can you say that? Catherine is the victim here. How can you pressure her like this?" "Daniel, sit down!" William commanded sharply. "This is a conversation between us and Miss Catherine. Please, don't interrupt." Daniel started to protest, but I stopped him with a look. I took a deep breath, stood up, and bowed deeply to William and Elizabeth. "Mr. and Mrs. Richardson, I apologize for causing you trouble." My voice was calm, but carried a note of finality. "Please be assured that from today forward, I won't allow my family to disturb you again. As for my engagement to Daniel, if you believe I would be a burden to him and the Richardson family, I'm willing to step aside." Speaking those last words felt like a knife through my heart. But I had no choice. I couldn't ruin Daniel's future because of my problems. Daniel grabbed my hand, his eyes reddening. "Catherine, what are you saying? I won't agree to this. I'll never agree." "Daniel, please stay calm." I squeezed his hand reassuringly. Then I looked at William and Elizabeth again, speaking with careful precision. "However, before I step aside, I hope you'll help me with one thing." Elizabeth looked puzzled. "What kind of help?" "I need support from the Richardson legal department." My gaze sharpened. "My parents and sister have stolen my personal property and are threatening and slandering me. I want to sue them." Yes, I'd decided to stop being passive. They wanted to create chaos? They wanted to destroy me? Then I'd drag them into court with me. Let the legal system decide who was right and who was wrong. Let them pay the price for their greed and shamelessness. William and Elizabeth clearly hadn't expected this request. Both looked surprised. William's sharp eyes studied me for a long moment, as if trying to see through to my soul. Finally, he spoke slowly. "You want to sue your own parents?" "They no longer deserve to be called parents." My voice held no warmth. The moment they treated my hard-earned money as their entitlement and my future as their stepping stone, they severed any family bond between us. William remained silent. The air in the living room seemed to crystallize. Daniel gripped my hand tightly, his palm damp with sweat. He was showing his support in his own way. After a long pause, William sighed deeply. He looked at Daniel with a complex expression. "Daniel, are you certain? You want to marry such a resolute woman?" "Dad, I'm certain." Daniel's answer came without hesitation. "I love her precisely for this clarity and courage. If she chose to compromise today, to let her family continue bleeding her dry, then I truly would lose respect for her." He turned to look at me deeply, his eyes filled with infinite tenderness and determination. "Catherine, whatever you decide to do, I'll stand by you. Even if it means opposing the entire world, I'm on your side." My eyes immediately moistened. William watched our clasped hands, his expression gradually softening. He nodded, as if reaching a momentous decision. "Very well. Since you've made your choice, the Richardson family will be your strongest support." He picked up his phone and dialed a number. "Robert, come to my house immediately. I have a case that needs your personal attention." After hanging up, he told me, "Robert Chen is our chief legal counsel. He's handled countless complex financial disputes. Tell him everything, and he'll give you the most professional advice." Warmth flooded through me. I bowed to them again, this time from genuine gratitude. "Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Thank you, Mrs. Richardson." Elizabeth took my hand and patted it gently, her tone much warmer. "Dear child, you've suffered enough. From now on, consider this your home." Half an hour later, Robert Chen arrived. He appeared to be a Chinese-American man in his 40s, wearing wire-rimmed glasses and projecting scholarly elegance, though his eyes were extraordinarily sharp. I explained everything in detail, how my parents had deceived me into buying the house, how they'd secretly transferred the deed, along with all the transaction records and message threads. Robert listened intently, occasionally typing notes on his laptop. After hearing my account, he adjusted his glasses and pondered briefly before speaking. "Ms. Catherine, this case is more complex than you might imagine, but not without merit." He analyzed the situation. "First, regarding the property. Although the deed bears your sister's name, you have a clear evidence trail proving the down payment came entirely from you, and subsequent mortgage payments were consistently made by you. Under Illinois law, we can file a constructive trust lawsuit claiming actual ownership of the property. Even if we can't recover the house entirely, we can at least demand your parents and sister return all payments you made, plus appropriate damages. Second, regarding the harassment and defamation you've endured from your parents. We can secure relevant evidence, such as security footage from your office lobby and recordings of their harassing phone calls to you and your fiancé's family. We can petition the court for a restraining order prohibiting them from approaching you or your workplace. If they violate the order, police can take direct action, including detention. Finally, and most importantly," Robert's expression grew serious, "are you certain you want to proceed to litigation? Once legal proceedings begin, there's no turning back for you or your family." I nodded without hesitation. "I'm certain." Despair greater than heartbreak had set in. When they pushed me to the breaking point, there was already no path back. Robert nodded. "Very well, I understand. We'll immediately draft the complaint and petition the court for a temporary restraining order and asset preservation, freezing the property under your sister's name to prevent them from transferring or selling it during litigation." "Asset preservation?" I was confused. "Yes," Robert explained. "Once the property is frozen, it cannot be sold, transferred, or mortgaged. This means your sister's wedding will likely be canceled." I paused, then understood Robert's strategy. This was a devastating tactical move. Jessica's fiancé had agreed to marry her precisely because of that mansion in Chicago's North Shore. Now, with the house frozen as disputed litigation property, would he still want to marry her? Hadn't my parents threatened me with Jessica's wedding? Then I'd personally destroy what they cared about most. I looked at Robert with a cold smile. "Let's proceed." That evening, Robert's team efficiently filed the complaint and asset preservation petition with the court. The next morning, the court's freezing order was delivered to my sister Jessica and her fiancé's families. Apparently, when Jessica's future in-laws saw that stark legal summons, their faces went pale immediately. They'd thought they were gaining a daughter-in-law with $1 million mansion, only to discover they were inheriting someone embroiled in litigation with potentially no assets at all. A grand engagement party instantly became a farce. Jessica's phone rang non-stop. She tried calling me dozens of times, then discovered I'd blocked her and began frantically bombarding Daniel's phone. Daniel answered once. The moment he picked up, Jessica's hysterical sobbing poured through the speaker. "Daniel, make that bitch Catherine answer her phone. Why is she doing this to me? Does she want to drive me to suicide?" Daniel's face immediately turned icy. "Jessica, please speak respectfully. Catherine is my fiancée. We've taken legal action regarding what you and your parents did to her. If you continue to insult her, I'll have my attorney add a defamation charge to your legal troubles." He hung up immediately and blocked Jessica's number. The world finally became completely peaceful. I leaned against Daniel's chest and sighed deeply. I knew this was only the beginning. A real storm was still coming. The storm arrived faster than I'd anticipated. The court summons and asset preservation notice exploded like bombs in my so-called family. Jessica's wedding was canceled without surprise. The groom's family returned the engagement ring overnight and distanced themselves completely, afraid of being dragged into the lawsuit. Reportedly, Jessica smashed everything breakable in their house, crying hysterically and calling me an evil woman who'd ruined her life's happiness. My parents panicked completely. They'd probably never imagined that their formerly compliant daughter would actually take them to court. They began frantically calling me, using different unknown numbers, leaving message after message. The content shifted from initial cursing and threats to later pleading and repentance. "Catherine, Mom and Dad were wrong. We were blinded by greed. Please forgive us this once. Sis, I'll give the house back to you. Please drop the lawsuit. I can't lose this marriage." Reading those pathetic messages, I felt nothing, not even amusement. Too little, too late. I didn't reply to a single message, forwarding all evidence to Robert. The court date was set for a month later. That month passed with unprecedented peace. My parents and Jessica stopped causing scenes at my office, probably intimidated by Robert's warnings or busy dealing with the aftermath of Jessica's canceled engagement. Daniel and I began seriously planning our wedding. William and Elizabeth's attitude toward me transformed completely, treating me almost like their own daughter. They took charge of all the wedding details, from selecting my dress to booking the church, personally handling everything to give me the most magnificent, perfect wedding possible. Elizabeth held my hands and spoke earnestly. "Dear child, we were too narrow-minded before. Rest assured, the Richardson family is your family now. No one will ever hurt you again." Looking at their loving gazes, I felt warmth in my heart. True family members shield you from storms rather than pushing you into them. On the court date, the weather was overcast. Daniel and I, along with Robert's legal team, arrived punctually at Chicago's civil courthouse. In the defendant's section sat my father, mother, and Jessica. In just a month, they seemed to have aged 10 years. Father's hair had gone mostly gray, his back hunched with defeat. Mother's eyes were red and swollen, her appearance haggard. Jessica looked even worse, pale and hollow-eyed, having lost all her former vitality. Seeing me, their eyes held complex emotions, resentment, fear, and a barely detectable trace of pleading. In court, Robert methodically presented the case, submitting evidence piece by piece. Bank transfer records proved the source of the $500,000 down payment. 6 years of salary deductions demonstrated who'd been making the mortgage payments. Text message conversations reconstructed how my parents had deceived me into buying the house under the pretense of it being for my wedding. Each piece of evidence was like a sword, precisely striking the 3 people in the defendant's section. Their faces grew increasingly pale, their bodies beginning to tremble slightly. When the defense's turn came, their clearly inexperienced public defender stammered that the money was my gift, that I'd voluntarily bought the house for my sister. Robert smiled coldly and stood up. If this was a gift, why do all the purchase agreements and loan documents initially bear my client's name? Why were all mortgage payments deducted from my client's account for years? If it was a gift, why did the defendants demand my client continue making monthly payments after transferring the deed? His rapid-fire questions left the opposing attorney speechless, sweat beading on his forehead. My parents panicked, ignoring courtroom protocol to stand up and shout their defense. Your Honor, she agreed to this. She's our daughter. She has an obligation to support us and help her sister. That's right. She makes tens of thousands a month. What's wrong with contributing this money? We raised her. She should pay us back. The judge frowned and banged his gavel. Order! Order! Defendants, please watch your language. Support obligations and gratuitous gifts are entirely different legal concepts. Watching their ugly behavior, I suddenly felt weary of the whole thing. I stood up and requested permission to address the defendants. The judge granted it. I walked over to them, my gaze calmly scanning each of their faces. Dad, Mom, Jessica. I have just one question for you. In all these years, have you ever truly loved me? Even for a day, an hour, a minute? My voice was soft but clear, echoing through the spacious courtroom. They all froze, mouths opening but no words emerging. How could they answer? If they claimed to love me, then why had they treated me so cruelly? If they admitted they didn't love me, what right did they have to demand my selfless sacrifice? Seeing them speechless, I suddenly laughed, tears nearly flowing. I finally had my answer, an answer I'd been seeking for over 20 years. Just then, Jessica, who had been silent in the defendant's section, suddenly stood up emotionally, pointing at me and screaming hysterically. Love you! Why should we love you? You're not even our real daughter. You're just some abandoned child they found on the street. Jessica's words struck like lightning in the courtroom. Everyone was stunned, including me and including my parents. My parents' faces went instantly white as sheets, father pointing at Jessica with a trembling hand. You're talking nonsense. Sit down. Nonsense? Jessica laughed maniacally, tears streaming down her pale cheeks. I'm not talking nonsense. I've known for a long time. I overheard you talking. I didn't mean to eavesdrop. You said it yourselves. She pointed at me, her eyes full of poison and resentment. Why? Why should you, an outsider, get to go to the best college, get the best job, wear designer clothes, drive nice cars? While I, their real daughter, had to live in your shadow. Why did that house have to be in your name first? Just because you make more money than me? It's not fair. Mom! Dad, tell her exactly what she is! The entire courtroom fell into eerie silence. The judge's gavel couldn't stop this out-of-control scene. My mind went blank. Abandoned child? Found on the street? I wasn't their biological daughter? This realization pierced my heart like a poisonous thorn. I turned to stare at my parents, desperately searching their faces for any sign of denial. But there was none, only panic, shame, and the embarrassment of having a secret exposed. Father collapsed in his chair, covering his face, unable to look at me. Mother's lips trembled as she mumbled, It's not like that. Her protests were pitifully weak. I understood everything. Finally, everything made sense. I finally understood why they'd always been so stingy with me while being generous with Jessica. I finally understood why no matter how hard I worked, how excellent I became, I never earned a single approving glance from them. I finally understood why they could so easily exploit me, taking everything I had to pave Jessica's way. Because in their eyes, I wasn't their daughter at all. I was just an outsider, a tool, a burden to be sacrificed at will. 20+ years of supposed family love, 20+ years of giving became a tremendous joke in that moment. My heart felt crushed by an invisible hand, the pain nearly stopping my breath. Daniel rushed over and held me tightly, his voice trembling in my ear. Catherine, don't listen to her lies. Don't believe it. I pushed him away and walked step by step toward my parents. My gaze was terrifyingly empty. Is what she said true? Mother didn't dare look at me, just shaking her head frantically, tears falling like broken pearls. Father looked up, his familiar face etched with pain and struggle. He opened his mouth, his voice hoarse and unrecognizable. Catherine, we do love you. Love me? I laughed, the sound desolate and hopeless. You love me by treating me like an ATM? You love me by stealing my house for your real daughter? You love me by making my entire 20-plus year existence a complete lie? My voice grew louder until it became a roar. The courtroom had descended into complete chaos. The judge called for a recess. I was led to a restroom by Daniel and Robert. I sat on the couch like a puppet drained of all strength, staring blankly at the ceiling. I didn't even have the right to hate them, because they weren't my family at all. I was an abandoned child. This realization felt more devastating than having my house stolen. Daniel held me tightly, kissing my forehead and hair repeatedly, as if trying to warm my cold body with his own heat. "Catherine, look at me." He cupped my face, forcing me to meet his eyes. "Listen, you're not an abandoned child and you're not alone. You have me, you have my parents. From now on, we're your real family. You weren't abandoned. You were found by me. You're my treasure, Daniel Richardson's treasure, whom I'll protect with my life." His voice carried convincing power, gradually pulling me back from the edge of collapse. Looking at his bloodshot eyes, seeing the pain and determination in them, my tears finally broke free. I threw myself into his arms, releasing all my grievance, pain, and despair in heart-wrenching sobs. I don't know how long I cried, until my voice was hoarse and my strength was gone. I looked up and told Robert, "Mr. Chen, I want to add another lawsuit." Robert was puzzled. "What?" I wiped my tears, my eyes becoming firm and cold again. "I want to legally sever all ties with them. I want them to repay every cent I've spent on them over the years, with interest." When Robert presented my new demands to the court after recess, the room again fell into strange silence. Terminating adoption relationships and reclaiming years of support payments and living expenses. This was a demand even more unacceptable to those three people than reclaiming the house. Father shot up, pointing at me, his lips trembling so he couldn't form complete sentences. You ungrateful child. We raised you all these years for nothing." "For nothing?" Robert spoke for me, his voice calm and powerful. "Defendants, from the time my client turned 18, not only did she stop costing you money, she actually covered all living expenses for you too, plus your other daughter Jessica's tuition and living costs. We have bank statements to prove this. If we're talking about who raised whom, exactly who was supporting whom." Robert submitted a thick stack of documents to the court. "These are transfer records from my client to the three defendants since she began working, totaling $250,000. This doesn't include various daily expenses she paid for the family. We now demand the defendants return this amount in addition to the house-related funds." $250,000. This figure struck my parents and Jessica like a boulder, leaving them dizzy and disoriented. They'd probably never calculated this account. In their minds, my money was rightfully theirs. "No, this can't be right," Mother shrieked. "She gave it willingly. This was her filial duty to us." "Filial duty?" I finally spoke, my voice ice-cold and emotionless. "In what capacity was I fulfilling filial duty to you? As your daughter? But you've just admitted I'm not your daughter. Since we're not blood-related, only legal adoption exists between us. Now I'm terminating that relationship." I looked at their ashen faces, speaking word by word. "Legally, you only had an obligation to support me until age 18. I had no responsibility to support you. That money wasn't filial duty. It was my hard-earned money extracted through deception and exploitation. Now I demand you return it. That's reasonable, logical, and legal." Father completely broke down, collapsing in his chair, muttering repeatedly, "It's over, all over." Jessica stared at me with poisonous hatred, as if she wanted to bore holes through me. I knew she hated me for destroying her mansion dreams, for turning her comfortable life to ashes. But I didn't care. The final verdict was unsurprising. The court supported most of my demands. The court ruled that the actual ownership of the house belonged to me, but since the deed was already in Jessica's name and I had voluntarily stopped payments leading to foreclosure proceedings, the situation was complex. Ultimately, the court decided that after the property was auctioned and bank loans plus related fees were deducted, all remaining proceeds would go to me. Additionally, the court ordered my parents and Jessica to jointly repay the $250,000 I'd paid for them, with a deadline for execution. Most importantly, the court approved my petition to terminate the adoption relationship. When the judge struck his gavel announcing the verdict, I felt unprecedented relief. The shackles that had bound my life for over 20 years were finally completely severed. I was free. Walking out of the courthouse, the sky had cleared. Sunlight broke through the clouds, warming my skin. Daniel held my hand tightly. My parents and Jessica followed behind like lost souls. Suddenly, Mother rushed forward, trying to grab my arm, but Daniel coldly blocked her. "Catherine! No, Catherine!" she cried and begged. "You can't be so heartless. We raised you for over 20 years. Even without merit, we deserve credit for our efforts. If you take all our money, how will we survive?" "How you survive is your own concern," I said calmly. "Just as when you transferred the house to Jessica, you never considered how I would survive." "Sis, I was wrong. I was really wrong." Jessica also ran over, grabbing my sleeve, crying pathetically. "Please forgive me. Can we go back to how things were? You're still my sister, okay?" "No." I looked at her hypocritical face with disgust. "Jessica, you never considered me your sister. You only saw me as your stepping stone and ATM. Now that the stepping stone is gone, you're panicking. That's all." I shook off her hand, took Daniel's arm, and walked forward without looking back. Behind us came their desperate cries and curses. I ignored them all. From now on, we were parallel lines that would never intersect. Their fate had nothing to do with me anymore.
The following days passed smoothly.
The house was quickly foreclosed and sold for $1.2 million. After deducting the remaining loan and various fees, I recovered nearly $800,000. Combined with the court-ordered return of $250,000, though execution took some effort, with the Richardson family legal department's strong intervention, my parents and Jessica had to sell their only home and scrape together the money. Overnight, they went from dreaming of mansion-owning wealth to homeless poverty. Reportedly, they now lived in a dark, damp basement apartment. Father developed high blood pressure and diabetes from the stress, while Mother and Jessica worked odd jobs to barely survive. Daniel occasionally mentioned these updates to me. I listened without feeling anything. No satisfaction, no sympathy, like hearing a story that had nothing to do with me. My wedding with Daniel proceeded as planned. The ceremony was grand and warm. William personally walked me down the aisle and placed my hand in Daniel's. He said, "Catherine, from today you're a Richardson daughter. We'll give you double the love to make up for all your losses." Looking at this handsome, devoted man and the friends and family genuinely celebrating for us, tears blurred my vision again. This time, they were tears of happiness. I once thought my life was a wasteland. Now I know that when God closes one door, He opens a window. I lost false family love, but gained true love and warm family. My story taught me that sometimes the people who should love you most are the ones who will hurt you deepest. But it also showed me that real family isn't about blood. It's about who chooses to stand by you when the storms come. In losing everything I thought I had, I found everything I never knew I needed.